Hi, everyone. I'm Nadia from Women in Animation, currently Vice President of our organization at Academy of Art University. Welcome.
Hi there, I'm Laura Vitolina. I'm the current president for our student chapter. And so Nadia and I will be kind of leading through the talk with our panelists today. We're hosting Shoulder Height Films. Nadia, do you want to do a little intro?
Yes, so we have Anneke Schonefeld from Shoulder Heights. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. I practiced, I did. And we also have Chris Schreier.
Hi.
Yes. And I will let them take on the reign right now. I know they have a little introduction video, so we're going to watch that first. Whenever you're ready. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
All right. Hi, everyone. Anneke Schonefeld. Yeah, I have one of those names. I'm the founder and creative director at Shoulder Height Films. And I'm here with Chris Schreier, who is my producer in animation and longtime friend. So hello. So we are, let's just get into it. So we are Shoulder Height Films. We are a brand new animation studio up in Portland, Oregon. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Portland, Oregon is the hub in the entire world. It is the largest hub for stop motion animation. And by proxy, we actually get quite a good hub of other types of animation because every stop motion feature will have their CG department. We will have, so we have a range of really great animation happening in the Pacific Northwest up here. Chris and I specifically moved up here to work within stop motion animation. Those Shoulder Height Films, we've done CG, we've done 2D. Stop motion is our passion, and handmade animation is just a really exciting field within animation to be involved in right now. So we primarily focus on commercials. We put together a short video, I promise, just a minute of a little bit about our work and some things that we do and have done. So you guys can kind of get a gauge on that before we get into our other topics.
Please accept this tasty Spam meal as a token of my appreciation.
Find new Spam meals for one in the microwavable meals aisle.
Break the monotony.
This is Mission Control. We're a go for breakfast.
Roger that.
Ignition and liftoff.
We're currently passing by hearts, stars and horseshoes, clovers and blue moons, unicorns, rainbows and tasty red balloons. And, whoa, orange planets, red planets, and blue rocket ships.
We've never seen those before.
They look galactically delicious.
New limited edition Galactic Lucky Charms.
Linda's little nose was in a standoff with regular tissues, so she roped in Puffs Ultra Soft to ease her issues. Puffs are air fluffed with 40% more cushiony thickness to relieve. A nose in need deserves Puffs indeed.
Yeah, so those are just a couple things. The last two we just did this year, but the first one I wanted to share with you guys, that was my first national commercial as a director. It was a big break for me. It was so exciting. That shot of a fork going into a bunch of Spam and potatoes, that's all I did. That's all I did, but that was my big break. That was my big moment. And I just wanted to share that with you guys because that was 12 years ago. And sometimes your big moments start really, really small. So that commercial was done by House Special, which was at the time Like a House, which is here in Portland. I was based in New York City, and I had my first job as a director. I was a staff director for an animatics company. So we did tests for commercials. So it was like kind of lower quality animation because it wasn't going to go into broadcast. It was so that they could like kind of work out all their ideas and their timing on commercials as an agency prior to going into making the commercials. Traditionally, it's a a churn and burn, those kind of companies where you'll get a job, but you're going to work 20 hours a day. Sometimes you're just going to like work, but you'll get a lot of experience. And through that job, I learned 2D animation, 3D animation. I got to work with lots of different things, but I also did some special effects and live action shooting. And that's how they were like, oh, you can shoot food. Here, shoot Spam. And so that was my first commercial. And I'm still really proud of it because it's in a museum. Spam has its own museum. But yeah, so that was the beginning of it all. I went through a lot of live action work after that before finally coming back into animation. So 3 years ago, I started pursuing stop motion animation more specifically with my career, which led me here to Portland, where I met Chris, and we both worked at Leica on one of their feature films. Before leaving that to work together at Bent Image Lab, another commercial company here in Portland, where we did both the Galactic Lucky Charms and the Puffs commercial, before starting our own company, which is a fully female owned and run production company, Shoulder Height Films, which we've named it such because we rise by lifting each other up, you know, and it's not always about how high we get. Sometimes it's also how high can our shoulders go, so that we can bring on the next people. And that is kind of the up till now.
Wow,
We
that's
have a few questions rolling in into the chat. If you wanted to go ahead and answer. From Melissa, we have, from your point of view, how has the animation industry changed since the COVID-19 pandemic hit?
Hugely. Animation, a lot of live action films had to stop production completely with COVID. And places like Netflix, places like these studios that their main source of income, the theaters were closed. They couldn't put out movies. You know, we were just talking about a trailer for a movie we've been watching for 2 years, but the theaters were closed. They still haven't released. So suddenly animation was one of the few areas where films could keep making things. They could keep working. So now where you live is less important. Everybody's working from home. So on our last production, I think we had 3 time zones worth of people involved in our production, and very, very few of them were local to us. So our animator was in LA, our lighting guy was in Iowa. Yeah, Iowa. Chris is nodding for me. We've had our texture artist was here in Portland with us, you know, so we really spread that out. And so working virtually, that's one of the big differences. It gives you a lot more flexibility. It gives you a lot more opportunity. However, if you're getting started in film, you're getting started in animation, I would say one of the hardest things is there's no more learning by proxy. You don't sit next to people and overhear their conversations or see their workflow or have those casual conversations. You're really on your own, continuing to learn yourself. So finding mentorship, I think, is even more important. Finding those relationships where you can continue to have casual conversations about your work, your process, like the things that you're working on. You're never going to show up as just an expert in what you're doing when you're getting started. So I think that that's one of the hardest things, is finding still that camaraderie and that step-by-step conversation that you would have had with someone that was just working next to you in the office. But it leads to a lot more opportunities for you guys. You can kind of live anywhere, and that's something that nobody wants to go back to, having to live in LA, having to live in New York. Like, they want to live where they can have the lifestyle that they want. People want to live in Portland because it's kind of awesome. And so you can work in Portland now, and we have friends in town that are working on feature films down in LA, but they get to live up here. So that's one of the big shifts. I would say animation has more work than ever since COVID, because people are able to continue working remotely.
To piggyback off of that, I would say that this is also a time that is really ripe for writers and people who are interested in sharing their own stories, because there are so many people at home. Netflix, for example, accepted like over 100 scripts from unknowns this year. So like people who have absolutely no connections within the industry, just submitting story. And so that's unprecedented. So it's a great time for people to be really working on their personal projects and pursuing them, to get them on screen in a way that I don't think that we've really seen before. Because normally there are these channels where you work your way up through crew, you work your way up through production, and then you meet the right person who connects you to the right person. But now that all of those lines of communication are really changing, it's really opening up a lot of opportunities for people who, like Anneke said, are not in LA, or who are just, amazing writers who just, are just, pursuing and accomplishing without having to follow that normative track. So that's for me, as someone who is interested in more stories, more diverse stories. I think it's really exciting to see that change. And but I also am a silver linings person. So
I think also because we're virtual, like a lot of things that we're already becoming industry standards, it's really important that you guys have your portfolios out there. Not just you have a website, you have on Behance, you're on ArtSpace, or like there's a list of places where you can have your portfolio. Now, because we're very online based, even in our basic workflow, that's becoming more and more of the normal conversation of like producers coming in the room and be like, oh, I was just on this portfolio site, found someone, reached out to them about a project. So those things, that I think has made it much more rapid, that being just online, being available in these spaces is getting you access more, because the world of being just online and us just hunting around the internet is becoming more and more of an everyday thing all the time.
Yeah,
which is also really exciting.
As someone who has more of a fabrication background, it absolutely has changed the way that we look for builders in stop motion, the way that builders are, presenting their work. More than ever, it's about, like documentation, where before you used to like build something beautiful, take a couple of really lovely shots, but now it's all progress work. It's all like, what are you working on now? How are you continuing to work, given all of these current obstacles? So it is really shifting. The like Anneke said, like the online space is really becoming a place where like we all like inhabit to find and look for work, and put our own work out there. I
see, like I don't have the chat open because it's too distracting.
I have it open.
But I see like where can we be posting, where are these like little clippets of the beginning of the questions, and that's a really good and important conversation you guys should continue to have and continue to ask, like, what are these things? But I would definitely say just the really big ones, the big portfolio sites, is you should have an Instagram. That is just your work. It is not your personal life. It is not any of those things. Just keep putting your work out there. Give people a place. That's just an easy one. But also, like, I like Behance. I think Chris and Anthony and some of our other producers have liked some other sites a lot more. I let them do a lot of the hunting and bring them to me, but Chris is a little bit more of the like proactive hunter on these things. Chris, do you have a couple sites that you like?
I do. I'm terrible with nouns, so I can throw them in the chat later. But honestly, for me as a producer, and I kind of want to hit on Annie asked about like the role of a producer in animation, how you talk to directors and clients and the other stuff. A huge part of what I do as a producer is that I am looking for talent. I'm looking for people, and it is constantly changing what I need. We work in commercial, and so what we're doing is constantly changing, which means I'm needing different people. The people who are routinely contacting me are the most likely for me to reach back out to. Whether it's just like, hey, I contacted you last month, I just wanted to show you this new thing that I've worked on, hope everything's going great. Staying at the top of my inbox like that's gold. And for me, when I was first starting out, when I was first looking for jobs, that is how I got jobs. Is just I had a spreadsheet of everyone in LA who was making stop motion and who was their contact person, and sending them an update email every month and letting them know that it updated my resume, that I loved the current thing that they were working on. And that has been a huge part. I think kind of where you put your work, it is less important than who are you reaching out to.
Yeah, agreed. And reaching out in good, proactive ways. So Chris passively just casually mentioned some things that I really want to highlight to you guys. What are you guys doing right now that I love so much, right? You're not writing a spam email. You're like, you wrote to her because of what she's doing, and really in a non-annoying way, like, hey, just hope things are going well, putting a little update, but like, you don't want to be annoying because that's like the opposite of what you're going for. But keeping track, like, what was Chris working on that made you reach out to Chris or gave you an excuse to reach out to Chris and continue that conversation? So doing that well is vital when you're getting started still. I think that's a really good point, Chris.
Yeah, I could talk about that for like forever, I feel like. It has served me so much in my career to reach out to people, even though it doesn't always feel great, to be like, here I am from the dark. Would you look at my art, please? And sometimes people never do, but sometimes they do. And then they offer you a job. And then when you get a job, you meet really great people. And then that's, people are really a huge part of how you find work, and so whether it's just connecting with people who are at the same level of experience as you, so that you can like talk about like what it is that you're going through, or maybe work on projects together, or continuing to like follow up with production companies, or even like small artists who are making work by themselves. They often need help. Just connecting really with anyone. That's a thing that Anneke is amazing at. Anneke will talk to everyone and anyone about their process and what they're doing and their current project. And it's really been a huge part of her success.
I also would highly recommend you guys look into, since we're just getting into it, the commercial space. So we at Shoulder High Films, like, we are pitching on TV, we are looking at big projects, but commercials is a really vital part of the industry. It gives you quick turnarounds, it gives you projects you could start showing off, and it keeps work coming. So as we're working on a team, it's easier for us to take a new person and put them on a commercial for a week, a month, whatever it is, depending on what position they're in, and get to know them. I get to know them as a person, get to know their workflow, than it is to just hire someone on to a TV show. That is, then we're like, all right, well, I'm going to be working with you for a year. And at that point, you have a strong tendency to go with someone with more experience. But to find out that someone's a great worker that you work well with, commercials is a really golden part of the industry for you guys to start getting connected with. And as opportunities to get work, opportunities to keep building your portfolio, building your professional network, I would definitely, as you apply for those, you want to work at Pixar, apply to Pixar. But as you're doing it, keep track of who's doing commercials, who can you be doing this kind of work with to help build out your portfolio, getting that network and getting that professional work on your reel is going to be a really important stage. That was what was great for me. I mean, not everybody has to go to commercials, but it's been really valuable for me, especially because I wanted to become a director. And I'm so jealous that you guys are all college students that want to be in animation, because I wish in college I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't. I worked in film for a while. I did a lot of different things as I got there. And you have that opportunity. You have that opportunity to be studying the thing you want to be doing. And that's really exciting. But yeah, when you're young and you're moving through, I would say, check out the commercial companies. It's going to be faster turnaround to getting portfolio pieces.
I guess we can like pull back and maybe talk about how did you, Anneke, get into the live action industry? Because you mentioned in our earlier conversations that you actually wanted to go into, becoming a cook and things like that. So what was your journey? How did you get here? You're founding a company now and being a creative director. So yeah, how it all started.
Yeah, so when I was in college, I thought I was going to be a chef. I was studying photography. Honestly, when I was a freshman, I had a triple major, and when I graduated, I had double majors that were not related. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I got a very random opportunity working in a restaurant. I was nice to this little old lady. This little old lady turned out to be someone's mother who introduced me across. And next thing you know, I was working on Hannibal, was the first feature film that I worked on as Anthony Hopkins' personal assistant. And it really came through very random channels. Like nobody could follow my path into that. But I learned really quickly that if you're proactive and you say like, I'm paying attention, I'm ready, what do you need? How can I help? That it very quickly went on to another feature film in town, very quickly went on to getting more work. And I didn't want to be a production assistant. So I was like, I see that job. That job looks painful. How do I skip that? And I looked around, I was like, art department, pretty sure I'd be good at that. And I just jumped into a department as a way of moving forward. I became an art director and worked in commercials and feature films as an art director and a set still photographer. I'm doing all the marketing and set photography for features. I did that for about 10 years and I studied every position. Again, there's a job on live action work called Best Boy. And I wanted to do it. I was like, yeah, I'll sign up, make me the best boy on set. I love it. It's in the grip and electric department. I did get to do it for a day. And I just tried every job. I was like, I'll do craft service. I'll feed you your snacks. Like, what do we need to do to really understand everything about filmmaking? And when it really came down to it, and I was like ready to take the next step into, whether it was being a production designer or, a lead role, I was like, I admitted out loud finally that I was like, I think I want to be a director. And I told a good friend who was a good mentor to me. I told her and she never let me forget it. She never let me forget that I had a dream that big. And she never left me alone about it either. She's like, so what are you doing? How are you gonna do that? And something that I found really important was being willing to take apart my life and career up to that point in order to build what I wanted to build. And so I moved from my smaller town. I was in Philadelphia. It wasn't a tiny town by any means, but it was a smaller industry as far as the film industry goes. And I left to move to New York to become a director and started over, had to start my network over, had to start all those things over again. And I got to work for that animatics company that got me into animation. I did not know animation. I knew I was interested. My brother was a particle effects animator. So I had all this side knowledge of conversations, but I didn't really know it until that moment. I loved that experience. I shot some spam people, spam. But that led to getting to shoot some live action food commercials. I had a background as a chef from college, so that was an easy transition for me. And I built the last 10 years of my career. I mean, pre-pandemic 10 years. I guess it's 12 years ago, but I built that time doing live action food work. And I flew to Russia to shoot mayonnaise. I mean, I had a really great opportunity to have a lot of adventures, but nobody respected my creative energy. They just wanted me to be a technical director. They liked that I could pull off this very specific kind of work. And I really wanted to be a creative, and I really wanted to make work that inspired me, that mattered to people. And, shooting McDonald's commercials is not that fulfilling as an artist. And so I love my work, but it wasn't where I wanted to go. So once again, dismantling a career that was successful. I was in the DGA. I was in the Cinematographers Union. I was doing really, really well. And I tore it all apart to come to Portland, Oregon to start in stop motion animation, because what I really wanted to do was get back to animation. What I really wanted to pursue was making things that mattered to me. And came to Portland, so blessed to work at Leica. Incredible artists there. I met Chris at the time. Chris was in the hair department and making puppet wigs. And I joined in the costume department. So I went from being a director down to making costumes in fabrication, and had an incredible time, learned a lot, and was able to move back now into directing and back into animation in the way that I was hoping to. And now finally opening the studio of my own. So that's my path.
Wow, truly amazing. On the topic of the studio, we do have a few questions that I've sort of combined. There's a few, does your company have any internship opportunities? And are you looking to hire any remote PA assistants as well?
Hi, okay, so getting into that. So Chris and I it's a team of 4 women. We have Hannah and Brooke with us as well. And
I think Brooke would be on the call, actually.
Yeah, I think I've seen Brooke on the call as well.
I'm here, I'm just quiet.
There she is.
Hi.
And we've been building this together. We are a very, very new company. You'll see we have not yet got our website out. We have it being built, but it's not yet public. Putting together, we have an Instagram that I'd love for you guys to all check out and follow, as well as you can follow us as artists and directors and things. But the studio, we have a studio space that will be taking on physical space and beginning a renovation, hopefully in the beginning of 2022. At which point, on a per project basis, we definitely are still hiring like for an individual commercial. And that's where, again, Chris is looking for a texture artist or a 2D animator, or, you know, whatever number of positions. As you guys know, animation is huge in its range. And so we're constantly hiring for projects. We will be implementing an internship program, absolutely, in the studio. Mentorship and interns are a very passionate part of the film journey for me. I really care about that stuff. But again, that probably won't start until sometime next year. And we're always open to those conversations. You know, we really want to build a supportive and nurturing environment. And that's something that I did not have much of in my film career. I really want a place where people can grow, people can, you know, develop and get into where they really want to get to. So we'll be working on that path. We are definitely looking to do an internship program, a proactive internship program, as well as constantly looking for artists for individual projects as they go. But yeah, you don't have to live in Portland to work with us by any means. Stop motion animation, which is what we're very passionate about, that's where you'll find you want to be more local. And that's huge, because I was talking to my friend, an editor who worked at Lucasfilms on a Star Wars show. And I was like, cool, I'm looking at breaking down a budget for a similar sized 2D animation TV show. And I was like, how many animators did you have? And she's like, I don't know. It was all done in Korea. So like most animation is outsourced. So that's one of the reasons stop motion is a passion for us, is it's all local artists. They are, you know, here with us building things. You can't, I mean, you could ship puppets around, but like people have to make them by hand. So that is, I'm just a rabbit trailing, sorry.
No, to that point, no, you hit it, because someone in the chat asked, like, so some of the students here are studying stop motion, want to know if it's advisable to relocate to Portland or LA. I really think that that is a personal decision and choice, because with the internet, you like absolutely can be found and recognized because of the work that you're putting online, and be able to transfer to a city like LA or Portland with a job. I moved to LA out of school without a job, and it was hard and scary. And I know other people who have done it and had to go back home. And I know some people who are freaking rock stars. So moving across the country to LA or Portland, I was a student who put themselves through college. And so it was something that I did really all on my own. And so as much as I've gained from it, I am not in a rush to tell people that you have to do that, because there are sacrifices that come with it. And in this day and age of the plethora of opportunities found online, I think that if you have financial constraints that are substantial, I think that you can find ways around it and get yourself to LA with a job when you land there. That being said, if you have the hustler spirit and you're not afraid of living off of, 20-pound bags of rice and canned beans, and you love the pain, go for it. I have a fabrication background myself. I had a lot of fun doing a lot of different types of art, and those experiences have absolutely aided me. I worked in mostly like the toy sector, but so working in toy prototypes as well as national campaigns to sell toys, because miniatures are very miniatures are in the realm of what stop motion artists build. But I also worked in scenic houses where I was painting wood grains and faux brick and excuse me, and doing things for live action sets. Like honestly, that could not be more different, like making tiny houses for Paw Patrol commercials, and then next week going and getting strapped into a harness and built, painting 5-story brick facades. Like really so many amazing experiences, some really terrible experiences, but like that is just my journey. And I think that if you have people near you that you can be working with, if you have the drive to build at home, if you have an interest in curating an online like presence, like I think that's also doable. I mean, there are people on TikTok who are killing it. The stop motion stuff on TikTok is it's so good, and those kids are going to get picked up. Those kids are going to get jobs. People get plucked up by studios, so it is not impossible. So take an inventory. Those decisions are for yourself. I do not think though that it is a requirement. But that's my TED Talk. Thank you.
I would say I love it. I would say though, like if you're interested in stop motion animation, you should know where you're trying to network. You know that you're trying to network in Portland. You know you're trying to network in LA. You know you're trying to network in Europe. New York has some, but it's a very small group of people in New York doing stop motion, which is where I came from, which is part of why I was like, if I open a studio, I want to do it in Portland, because there's 3 feature films going on in Portland right now in stop motion animation. Which like that's the most stop motion in one city ever. But LA has, still Stupid Buddies and Bix Pix and lots of different studios that do commercials to TV to all kinds of things. So you should have that list, like what Chris talked about, of these are the studios that I'm trying to get in touch with, and who is the person I could start a conversation with? How do I have a conversation with people there so that I can be up to date on what's happening, who's making what who has projects? Especially in the TV and movie sphere, you can find out about these big projects. So where you want to be networked in based on these cities. So you should follow Portland animation.
So someone asked me in the chat, and I answered them very briefly, but I figure since it's available for everyone, how do you put that list together? It literally is no more, like there's no more nuance to it other than like internet sleuthing. It is like Googling studio, stop motion studio, 2D studio, 3D studio, creative collectives, commercial animation, and then your city's name or the city that you're looking in. I would make a spreadsheet for each city that you're looking in. It is really no more nuanced than that. And literally just going through each website, looking at their stuff, seeing if that's a place that you think you're interested in. I would say if things don't look super polished, they probably need interns. And experience is experience, right? So like, yes, maybe you're an intern at a couple of different studios. If you have the financials to swing that, baby, do it. But it's really no more nuanced than just like Google searching, and also like digging into the shows that really speak to you, the shows that you really like, the films that you really like, who made them, where were they made? IMDb, it's so much easier than it used to be, but you just track people down. You can use IMDb and look at people's entire career paths. Like truly.
I'll say too, because so one of the things that we really champion at Shoulder Height Films is being a positive place for neurodiversity, and each of us has different like learning techniques and work methods and things that we need. And sometimes this idea, this like Google spreadsheet of like things feels overwhelming to some people. And there's a lot, it's the same thing as start following people on Instagram, chat with them, leave comments, start a discussion. People are people, and people like people, generally speaking, and artists put their work out there. Leave a compliment, but not just a compliment, something that actually starts in a conversation. I have met incredible artists, some top of their fields. I've met miniaturists that absolutely their work should just be in museums forever, like unbelievable talents. And they've shared with me techniques. We talk because they're just people. So starting those conversations, you can, wherever you find talent that you appreciate, it's not a competition. Be friendly with the people whose work you admire. The group Women in Animation, like find the work of the people that you like and just start talking with them. So find the channels that will help you break that down. If the spreadsheet version you still need to plug away at, but if that gets overwhelming, just start hitting up human beings in whatever platform is easiest for you. Because the world does want you to engage in the conversation, and we so easily separate ourselves from that. We so easily like hide from the conversation, and being a part of it, having that voice at the table, sometimes that literally just means chatting with the other artists. Just chat with the other artists. And that'll be the beginning of getting your voice in the industry, getting your voice in the network. I have my art director on the rocket ship spot. We became friends through Instagram. Like he's local to me now, and we have, since obviously we've worked together. I like moved and I gave him my barbecue, like we're friends. But I initially, through direct messages, chatting with him about 3D printers. That's how we became friends.
That's also how you connected with our coordinator, Hannah.
Yeah. So there, women in animation groups like this are incredibly valuable, but they're not valuable if you just sit back and like say, you want to say hi, you want to connect. For me, some of those things, I'm a big introvert, believe it or not. And some of those things get really draining for me. It gets really exhausting. So again, break it down into where is it easiest for you to find connection, because people like people who like their work. Like it's a compliment for you to start that conversation. So you don't need to be afraid about approaching them. Some people never look at DMs and you'll never hear back. That's okay too. Just leave compliments. If they're posting their work, they're trying to share it with the world, engage with that conversation.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I completely agree with the Women in Animation. It's a great network, and please connect to us and we can connect us to bigger chapters. But bouncing back to kind of selecting the right either stop motion studio, I wanted to talk about like the hidden dangers of working with these like new plastics and new materials. I know that there's like a whole site to it. You should probably.
So people interested in stop motion, this is a really big deal, and it doesn't sound like a big deal unless you're in our niche, but we are building a green studio. We are trying to do a low toxicity environment studio. In stop motion animation, we deal a lot of plastics, melting plastics, glues, lots of materials that on their own might not be terribly toxic, but with prolonged exposure, with using even something like super glue every day, all the time, people have developed chemical sensitivity within the stop motion industry and within fabrication. This is something that affects women even more than men, we've noticed through just our friend groups and the people affected. And so that has become a priority for us, is to build a green studio. But if you're interested in stop motion animation, I do think it is a topic that you should start to educate yourself on. We have actually Brooke, Chris, and Hannah were all on my safety committee at our previous studio. And making sure that you do learn, like always using your gloves when all those things. So it's a niche industry. Like the nice thing about animation, the rest of animation, there's no toxicity. You're at a computer. You need to give a break from the screens every once in a while. But within stop motion, that is definitely something to be educated on, is chemical sensitivity, because people develop it over the course of their careers. But I've definitely seen it end careers because they can no longer be near resin, for example. A resin is very, very reactive, and you don't know when your body will start reacting to it, but you'll suddenly hit that moment, and then you can walk past someone else's restaurant, they're refinishing their floors, and you'll break out in a rash because you were like close to somebody using resin. So that's something that we care very much about as a studio, is creating a safe environment. Not to say that other studios are innately not safe, but really taking that to that next level, really, really making that a priority, is another reason why we as a group of 4 decided to start our own studio and really give it that fresh start, is because being a low toxicity environment was really important to us. And it does often require a full fresh start, or a full renovation, or a full bigger step. So that's something that we at Shoulder Height Films do care very much about.
Yeah, and this is like my mom pitch, because as a fabricator, as a background fabrication, this stuff's really important to me. Is always wear gloves, always wear gloves. Anytime I hear someone say I can't sculpt with gloves on, all I hear is you're not a very good sculptor. And I know that sounds real rude, but put gloves on. Lifetime exposure to even inert chemicals is still exposure, and you're absorbing things through your hands. If you can smell it, it's in your bloodstream. So if it smells bad, put a mask on. If you can smell it through your mask, you haven't put your mask on right. And always read the instructions and warnings on everything you're working with. And that was my tough mom talk.
And we will say, as this is Women in Animation, event, a lot of these health risks factors, like chemical sensitivity, can happen to anyone, and we have all genders friends that have been affected, but a lot of the health risks affect women worse or more or earlier for different things. So it's something that we should talk about. It's something that we should care about as a group. So that's our PSA.
Thank you so much for that. I feel like not enough people talk about, the harmful toxins that are in all the tools that go into 3D and stop motion. On that topic, someone asked if you use 3D printers as a part of your creative process for stop motion at all, and what are your thoughts on this technology?
I love 3D printing. I love hand sculpted things the most, because it's like magic. You just watch someone and all of a sudden you're like, oh my, I can't make that. That was how, and it just magically appears through their talent. But 3D printing we use all the time. At larger studios, you'll see face replacement animation, all those things. And that's a entire subsect of the digital animation departments at Leica, for example, is just people that are going into, all their work is going to be 3D printed. whether they're making props, whether they're doing facial animation, whether they're doing, other, internal bits and bobs, but they are CG artists and all their work is meant to be printed. And then there's the CG artists that are doing backgrounds or characters or effects, so if you're interested in that, it's definitely a big field, and it translates well into live action film. It translates into, I worked as a head of fabrication for a specialty prop house in New York, where we had a 3D department of 3D printers. I think that there is a lot to explore within that. I think it's still a growing field. The level of printing, some of the worst jobs you can get at a stop motion studio is cleaning 3D prints all day and sanding them and then sealing them. And it's called working in the sandbox, and it stinks. So, it's.
That being said, it does get you in the door. It does get you in the door. So it might stink. Sometimes you do jobs that aren't fun, but they get you in the door.
Yeah. For us, I've used it for even CG jobs where I'm doing character presentations or pitch decks. So it's not limited to stop motion only. I definitely have seen it on other jobs, from live action needing something specialty to CG doing a presentation, or character design, things. So I've definitely seen it used across the board. And it's worth knowing how to take your CG animation into print, because a bad print is like really thick and solid and really, done poorly. And it's not a lot of education. If you already know how to sculpt, it's not a huge amount of education to get you into having a print of your sculpt. And I really think it's a unique way to show off your work if you're a CG animator. And that's, you want to go into CG and stay in CG. It's still a unique way of showing off your portfolio, a unique way of showing off the kinds of things you can do. And I've heard once you have your own little printer, it gets addictive and people just start making stuff all the time. So I do think 3D printing is super valuable.
Amazing. A lot of people have been sharing that they love that you share that you're an introvert and that you're so successful in everything that you've accomplished throughout your career, and not only how far you've come, but they're happy to hear that you're successful in all of it. So it's nice to hear.
Introverts we can do it, guys. We can do it. I think when you face up, like knowing yourself is a really important life journey, right? We're just on a life journey of getting to know who we are. But, knowing if you're ADD or knowing that you're an introvert or knowing your obstacles is important, because you can overcome them. It's not that I'm not going to be an introvert, but I know that I need to make more meaningful connections because I can't handle making large group connections, right? I need to do one-on-ones. I need to be getting to know people in a more personal way, because I don't show up at the party and meet 20 people and stay in touch with them all. I have a really good conversation and I keep that up. And so it's not that you're overcoming it, meaning you stop being whatever that is. It's that you find the way to continue to pursue what you want anyway. And we need each other. We need people. And so you can't just hide away and hope that the world is going to see you. You need to be good to work with. You need to be communicative when you're on a job, being easy to work with things. So as we talked about with COVID, we were running our studio through F-Track, Shotgun. These are all project management softwares. If you worked with the Amazon Nimble Studio, they have their own project management software. But this is a way that you chat with your coworkers, share files, show your work, share your work, and all these things. And knowing how to be a good communicator within these platforms is the equivalency of like, I still get to work from home. I still get to like have my space that I need, but I'm showing up and I'm being a part of that conversation. Because just because you're an introvert and you need that space doesn't mean that you should be quiet. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be heard. It just means that, you can get drained out by large groups of people. So I think the pandemic's been great for us introverts in the way that we've found ways to give ourselves that room. But again, I think you just have to keep coming back to how does it that I show up for the conversation? And we get to hide away in our own rooms and still show up now. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So introverts, let's take over the world. Let's go.
I wanted to also kind of ask, so you're a director and you're in this high position, and as artists, we're supposed to tell stories and kind of tell certain things and, you know, keep these conversations going. And so besides the commercial work, what is something that maybe your studio or maybe you want to kind of like make the conversation going and, you know, be a part of certain topic projects? Is there something specific you want to, you know, put up higher? So.
Yes. So I'm hugely passionate about this because I'm building a commercial studio. I'm building a commercial branch to my studio is really how I think of it. Even if we start with commercials and that's how we make our money, because I need to make money. Money is power, and I need to be able to control my studio's trajectory. And so we do commercials, and I love advertising and marketing, but I'm really, really passionate about telling empowering stories to kids. Specifically, the stories I write, and we work with other writers, other directors, you know, people like we care about lifting people up in general. But for me personally, as a director, that angry 8th grade girl that really wishes the world would take her more seriously is my muse. Like, that is who I want to make content for. I love my inner 8th grader who desperately wanted to be taken seriously, and the world still treated me like a kid. And making content for kids that are dealing with more complex issues than I was. You know, I'm older than I look. Like, I was, you know, my childhood was in the 80s. I was barely allowed to watch TV, much less have the internet. There was no social media. There was none of those things. So I'm actually working on a series of modern fables and storytelling for kids that is dealing with these new problems that kids are facing, the pressure to want to be Pinterest worthy or Instagram worthy. You know, that's not something I grew up with, but it is something they're facing now. Kids, I see my nephews, I have 2 nephews that are deeply on the autism spectrum, and seeing how other kids are taught and are fully capable to be like, oh, we introduce them as autistic, and these kids are like, okay, cool. And they adjust their behavior and know how to deal with it. I was like, these kids are blowing my mind. They're so amazing. And I want to make stories and things that help them navigate through life and lift them up while they're dealing with a more complicated world than I was, and not talking down to them about it. So that's something I'm personally very passionate about. And when the stuff that I write, the stuff that I'm hoping to direct in more TV format is definitely down that path. As we look for, you know, Chris is always looking with me for more talent and things. For me, the dividing line as a studio, and you know, as a head of a studio, I'm like, there's always going to be people who want to do stop motion that's like Halloween, right? Have the stop motion and Halloween have a huge relationship. Stop motion and Christmas have a huge relationship. But someone that wants to make a horror film, or someone that wants to make, you know, something, it could be artistic, it could be interesting. I could love it, but I'm not going to help them make it because there's enough people in the world to help them make it. Like, I really want like people with a passionate voice to tell stories we haven't heard before, to tell stories that make the world a better place for having been told. And that's really what I'm looking for. And that's really what I'm passionate about finding and being a part of. So if we're going to put in that much work and blood, sweat, tears to like make something created out of thin air, guys, that's what's so amazing about animation. We out of nothing, and we build a whole world. I'm really passionate about building worlds that make the world a better place for having existed. So I don't need another end of the world. I watched a movie the other night and every single trailer was like the world is going to end and this is why or how. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. Someone else will help you make that story. But I really think that we lift each other up. We give each other the empowerment to take up space in this world. And I don't think enough that you have to tell that story again and again and again, that take up space in the world. You deserve to take up space in the world. You deserve to take up space in the room. You deserve to be a part of the conversation. And I think we just really you can't say it enough times. It's not like we made one movie and now, yeah, good, that story's out there. I want to show that again and again and again, that you deserve to take up space. And that should be a good place to live from. So that's, for me, that's what I'm really passionate about. We're exploring lots of different stories. I think by nature of animation, we like world building, you know, so we do really appreciate stories coming our way that, you know, visually are interesting, and, you know, design wise, those things are validly important in animation. And that's what's so exciting. In animation, I can have a bigger idea, but in live action, it would be so expensive. Like, it's like, well, I don't have Game of Thrones money, but I could do an animation. We could do crazy costume design and crazy, you know, set design, because we get to build it from nothing. So
I love that.
And that's why I love working with you too.
Yeah, I mean, I think to piggyback off of that is that, like, I feel, and I think that this is why we work so well together, is that, like, I feel really passionately about supporting people who want to tell important stories, and I want to help people tell their stories, and I want to create an environment that is safe for people and as low waste as possible. And a big part of that is the research that goes into the materials that are used, the safety procedures required, and making sure that enough time is budgeted for the project, that we're not churning and burning through supplies. We can use reusable supplies because we have the budget for someone who helps clean up the studio, and we have budgeted enough time for the schedule to not be, you know, eating us alive. And so it's like these two things that we, you know, have to balance as a small studio, is that, like, how do we tell these beautiful stories that really mean a lot to us, and how do we do them in an ethical way that makes us feel good about the space that we're taking up, that we're taking good care of the people who work for us, and that in a industry, stop motion makes a lot of waste, and frankly, a significant amount of it is slightly toxic or just flat out toxic. So, like, how can we try to change, change and pivot so that we can tell amazing stories, take good care of the people who make them, and feel good about the footprint that we're leaving behind.
I want to piggyback on Chris's piggyback. This is, see, shoulder height. We just keep picking. Yeah, no, that's cheesy. But Chris's journey let her really hone in on what she's passionate about, like what jobs best fit her because of what she loves, what gives her energy, what inspires her. And that's something that when you're early in your career and you're still in school and you're still doing these things and you're trying to figure out, like, you're like, everybody wants to be an animator. Why? Because that's the name of the job. Like, we're in animation, right? We want to be animators, but you might discover that you like being a texturist. You might discover that you like being a modeler. You might discover that you like, you know, particle effects or, you know, other things. And there's so many jobs within jobs, and like the field is like, I want to be in sound. Then you find out there's like 25 different jobs within that field. So constantly figuring out, again, who are you, is going to be a part of the journey of saying, like, everybody in live action, everybody wanted to be a director. I was embarrassed to admit I wanted to be a director because everybody wanted to be a director. And it took me 10 years of analyzing and deciding that's what I wanted to do. And so I think, finding out what you want to do and how you can best support it. I think people don't look in production nearly enough. Being an animation producer is an incredibly creative job. It's not making physical or like visual art, but you're still problem solving all the time. And maybe that's your side of creativity. Maybe problem solving is a good place for you, or maybe you really like making personal art and then want to be involved in the industry. You know, there's lots of spaces. So I think that's something else, to just keep your hearts open to the very wide range of jobs available within the industry, And you don't just want to be an animator because it's like the easiest word. I'm an animation. What do you do? I'm an animator, right? Like there's lots of things within that. And we hire animators very specifically. Are you an expression nuanced animator? Are you a physicality animator? You know, like what is your niche within that? And you'll be hired again and again because you're really good at one specific piece of it, not every piece of it. So I think, again, finding out what you really want to do and specializing is a very good way to continue to move forward.
Thank you so much. This is such an amazing panel, I think, and there's everybody in the chat is like going crazy. We are, however, reaching 1 hour mark, so we're slowly wrapping this up and taking the few last questions. And Melissa is asking, one of my long-term goals is to start a virtual animation production studio, much like the one that you have someday. What advice would you give to those with career goals like that?
So if you want to start your own studio, you want to learn about being a producer, because really at this point in my career, yes, I'm also a director. Yes, I do creative things and I love them and I'm passionate about them, but I'm passionate about letting my artist make the art. I am a business person. I am a business owner, and the producing, the budgets, the scheduling, the hiring, the firing, that is what it is to own a studio. It is not for everybody, but it is amazing. And it is going to be a real part of us getting these new voices out, us getting women as directors. Come on, people. There are so few female directors in animation. It is a crime. And so we do want, and I want to encourage you guys to start studios, but it is not for everybody. You really want to focus on business. You want to focus on scheduling, how to break down a budget. Those are the things that are going to matter, because it is the budgets that are going to allow you to give the staff, that is going to allow you to make the projects. And really, really, if you want to own and run a studio, it's more accessible than ever. Amazon Nimble Studio, go for it. Make things, be brilliant, make the world amazing. But there's a very real side of that. Look at business, read books on business. That is what you're doing. Once you're the head of a studio, that's what you're doing, is running a business, which I love. And I will talk to you about it. If you want to do it, email me. We will share our contact and let you guys connect with us, and find us on all the social platforms and things. We're just building up a new social platform for Shoulder Height Films that we're excited about developing and growing as a way that you can connect with us. But that's what I would say. If you want to open a studio, talk to people that are running small businesses. So that's what I would say.
Oh, thank you. And then one last question is, so as an introvert, how do you deal with burnout?
Burnout. We focus a lot as creatives. We give energy all the time, right? We put energy into our projects. We put energy out, and we rarely think about what gives us energy back. So there's, of course, everybody like shuts down, takes a few days off, hides away. Yeah, classic examples. But I find that's a really slow way to build my energy back up when I'm burnt out. And I think the best thing that I've discovered, and it's different for everybody, but no matter how busy you are, no matter what's going on, set aside some amount of bandwidth for your own personal project. Have a personal art project. For me, it might just be embroidering at night, you know, like I'm making my mom a Christmas present and I'm embroidering. Right now, I have a personal stop motion film that I've been building for years prior to even building a studio, and I keep working on it. Despite the fact that someday my team will work on it, we'll do these things, like I just keep plugging away. And having a personal project, it doesn't matter who loves it, who you share it with, it's just for you as an artist, gives energy back into my own creative life instead of giving it all away professionally, giving it all away to everybody else around me. So for me, I not just take the time off and hide away, but I work on a personal art project. And that speeds up the burnout recovery for me.
Thank you. That's great advice. Yeah, because personal projects, they bring joy too, and it gives you more energy to kind of go back at all that other mess. So yeah, thank you so much. Do you have any last remarks, any last things you would like to say to the audience?
They're going to be sending out an email so you guys can connect with us, but we're at Shoulder Height Films on Instagram. I only have 4 posts out there. So, but I do manage the messaging. So if you guys want to write to me through that platform, it's a fast way for me to connect to you on a visual platform where I can see your work. And it's, you know, it's like putting a face to the name, you know, in a way. Like I see your artwork and I'm like, oh, that's that person, right? And I, you know, can see and follow your work. So it's a good place to reach out. We'll offer more and connect with us on LinkedIn and, you know, all the places. But I do personally take care of all of those direct message, you know, and commenting and stuff. So reach out, guys, say hello. Let's have a conversation. So yeah. Chris, do you have anything else?
Just, you know, keep hustling, man. Just keep working. Whether it's your work, whether it's work for other people, whether it's just connecting with people. And when you need to take a break, you take a break, you know, just listen to whatever is the clock or, you know, the small voice that's inside of you, you know, whatever it is, just follow that, you know. For me, it's follow the dopamine. What is getting me excited? I'm doing that. And so whatever that means for you, do that. And, you know, it just is continuing to do the work and taking good care of yourself so that you can do the work.
Yeah.
And good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just went ahead and put the Instagram for those who want it in the chat. So feel free to follow.
Awesome.
I wanted to thank you all so much for joining.
Oh, you just went to mute.
Muting.
Whoopsie. I was saying, and for the great advice, everyone has been raving in the chat, just that this has been an amazing talk, really wholesome and real is what everyone needed to hear. So thank you.
Good. I mean, that's what we're here for, guys. Like, that's why we take time for these kind of panels. Like, we get it. We're in the same grind as you. We're in the same hustle. And, you know, I've just been doing it longer. That's all. Just keep going.
Yeah, it really is just that same grind that we're talking about. It doesn't really get easier. You just get better at it. And you know, just practicing, it's a muscle. Just keep going.
As you keep networking, those relationships go from being a network to friends, to colleagues, to people you know, people that you have shared experiences with, and it just makes it easier. It's not that I'm better at networking. I just have longer relationships with all the people I have been networking with. And so you guys keep it up, but make them into relationships. And that also takes a lot of the burden off of it being networking.
And people aren't competition, they're collaborators, right? So like, don't judge yourself based off of other people. Don't just don't, like, other people they're not your competitors, they're your collaborators. You know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having us. It was so lovely to chat at you guys.
It's a pleasure to having y'all. Thank you. So
thanks. All right.
We'll close it slowly out. Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.